Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about car spyware and other things. It's Tuesday, March 12, 2024. So go ahead, Doug, you got this Venmo story.
Yeah, I got a Venmo story here. This is kind of hitting home, but what do you do? This is a question that's posed. What do you do when you have a Venmo account, somebody steals your money from it, you call up Venmo and you say, hey, looks like my account's been hacked because I can no longer log in and all the money in it is gone. And they take a look at your account and they say, oh, yes, we can see that someone logged in with our AI tools, and we can see that somebody made 36 $300 transactions in rapid succession, and our AI engine flagged it as being fraud. But where's the money? Oh, it got transferred to the other bank. Well, can you call the other bank and recall those transactions since you identified it as fraud? Oh, we're not sure about that. Well, why didn't your AI engine block the transactions if they were identified as fraud? Oh, we don't know. So the question is, and this is kind of a legal one, is what I'm going to ask you, Sam. Where do you think things stand on this? Because here they've got the technology, they've clearly identified it. If you look at the transaction log, you can see bam, 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 $300, $300, $300, $300. And then you can see that the password was changed. You can see the bank account that was being transferred was entered in. It was then removed after all the transfers and the password was changed. And the account was deleted at the end.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd call a lawyer, right? It's a significant amount of money, right? You said like 36 transactions, $300 each.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
definitely enough to justify getting a lawyer. I mean, obviously, the question is what exactly are the terms of service? But I don't think anybody has the right to just ignore obvious fraud like that, even if they claim that in the terms of service. I think you need a lawyer.
yeah, bad answer.
Well, I've used lawyers have helped me a lot. I mean, I think if they don't cough up the money willingly, then you need to fight for it, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, I'm just asking from a legal point of view,
Oh,
if a
well,
company says that they have AI to
well, I
fight
don't
fraud,
Well, I don't know if that's relevant or not really. I think the question is who's responsible if the account gets hacked. And I remember there was a case where there was actually, I heard a lot of cases this where banks
yeah,
would force you to use an old version of Adobe PDF Reader because their software was not updated. Then you would get hacked because it was vulnerable. And then the company would say, oh, that's your fault. You let someone steal your password. And the companies always try this stuff, and you really have to take them to court to beat them
yeah,
back. They can even put, like, I remember I used to notify colleges of their vulnerabilities until someone pointed out to me I was violating the CFAA. So I started analyzing mobile apps and to find their vulnerabilities. And then they say you're violating the DMCA. And I told Staples about their vulnerabilities, and they said, look at the terms of service for that app. And I didn't look. The front page says in screaming letters, you are not allowed to reverse engineer this app. I said, oh, I didn't even look at that. But I asked my lawyer, and he said, they can say that, but that's garbage. It's fair use. If you use an app that you're allowed to reverse engineer it to find out how secure it is. So, I mean, they can say anything they want in the terms of service, but you have to take them to court and battle them. It won't
yeah.
all hold up.
Yeah, that's like the terms of service written on the outside of the cardboard box for an appliance that we
Well,
talked about.
Well, yeah, and I suppose it might hold up. It will depend on the details. What did
Yeah,
you say?
yeah,
It's that's why I remember the traditional thing we all have where there's like 300 pages of garbage that nobody reads. I think those are beginning not to hold up on court on the grounds that nobody would read that.
yeah, yeah. All right, so that's an ongoing story. I'll keep you up to date on that one. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
What's your story for today? Tell me
Well,
about the cars.
yeah, the cars
So,
is the most exciting one. This is Kashmir Hill. Kashmir Hill is a privacy reporter that really done a lot of great things. Uh, she's done a million similar stories where she tests the security of things. She's one of the first people to download all the information Facebook had on her. She tried living on Bitcoin for a week, and she does these things. So she found out, I don't quite know how, it's a cover story in the New York Times, that cars are tracking everything you do and they're sending it to insurance companies without telling you. And then your insurance company raises your rate because they say, oh, you had a panic stop like 3 times last month and you exceeded the speed limit this many times. It keeps track of details of your driving and sends it to them. And when
Oh,
people find this out, they
interesting.
feel very intruded upon. It seems like, is this legal? Is this okay? Did they tell you? People didn't know. But apparently, these cars are just reporting these details back home. And see, the thing that surprises me is several years ago, got a letter from a insurance company saying, hey, you could get cheap insurance by installing our gadget in the car that will report to us how you drive. And I thought,
Yeah.
maybe I'll do that because I'm a good driver. My car is so old, it doesn't connect. So I didn't do it. But apparently, they've turned this on for normal modern cars without telling anybody using the internal smartness of the car. So this is the kind of thing that may change that policy, I think. People becoming aware of this.
Yeah, that's interesting. My daughter purchased a car and I think it was State Farm Insurance
Yeah.
sent a tracker to her. And again, reduced rates if you put the tracker bug in the car. When I saw it, I thought it was for like a low jack, like a Apple AirTag
Yeah.
to track it. But she said no, it monitored her driving. What I don't know is how the tracker sent that data back to this insurance company.
Apparently, cars are now all connected to the internet. I mean, I got a
Yeah.
pretty old car before all this, but
No, this is a little bug, a little
yeah.
square box.
Well, yeah, it connects to CAN bus, so it goes through the car's system. And that's
Okay.
why I couldn't use it on mine. Mine is too old. But I
Ah,
think I think it does assume your car is connected to the internet because it's a relatively modern car.
all right.
Anyway, so this is the sort of privacy expose that changes things.
Yeah. Well, we talked about your TV, right? With Walmart buying Vizio TVs, spying on you to see what you're watching, and that
Yeah,
way they're going to advertise to you,
yeah.
custom advertising.
This is the surveillance capitalism. Everybody's spying on you everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
except me because everything I have is dumb. But there's nothing interesting about me anyway. Anyway,
That's what you think.
that is what I think because I've totally turned into my father. I remember my father would answer the phone. He would just hang up on people if they were telemarketers. And I used to go. I lived near a Staples or no a Target, and I would go in there and wander around and say, "This is all junk. I don't want any of this stuff. Why is anybody buying this crap?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just don't want to buy anything. I mean, their odds of selling me anything is very small.
No, I feel like you. I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Sort of on a tangent story, KQED has a podcast called Bay Curious,
Mhm.
and they just did an episode on the right to repair.
Oh yeah.
And that's happening at libraries here, and people are taking their products that they purchased, Target, Home Depot, wherever, and they take them to the library and people help fix them
Oh, that's
instead of buying. And yeah, so it's one of those trends that's going on. And you're talking about you don't like buying things at
yeah.
Target. I
Yeah.
kind of agree. A lot of the stuff is built in obsolescence,
Yeah.
right?
I just don't
Built in
have
to
much.
fail.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so what else have you got? Oh, the teachers.
Yeah, so here's one for teachers. We've heard that students are using Chat GPT to generate papers,
Yeah.
right? We've heard that lawyers have used Chat GPT to generate pleadings, although I don't think they're that great from what I've heard.
Well,
Or
there's a special one that just came out just for lawyers, so hopefully they're getting better.
ah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Wonder if you can use that when you're taking the bar exam.
Not yet.
Anyway, here's the story. Teachers are fighting back. So they're using Chat GPT to grade students' papers.
Yeah, this reminds me of the dystopia. I was thinking of the future where you have like AIs creating television and AIs watching the television, and there's no humans in the loop at all.
Yeah, well, when Siri came out and then Microsoft came out with Cortana, I thought we should leave them in a room together talking to each other.
There was a project where they did that. They connected two AIs to each other and they
Did they?
developed their own secret language and started sending messages that the humans couldn't read, and they turned it off because they freaked out.
How long ago was that? Where was that
About
at?
2 years ago, in the
Oh,
early days
wasn't
of
that long
LLMs.
ago.
And people, and this was one of the many things that made people really afraid. Hey, it's really getting intelligent. It's really going to turn into AGI. It's really going to take over the world. We better turn it off.
Yeah, right. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, this actually, I think, is a huge problem for people that assign papers. I'm pretty much going to give up assigning papers because of this. Um, how would you really make sure they're not using? I guess you'd have to make them write the essay in class or something. I mean, if you're going to
Yeah,
write papers and make sure they write them, it's going to be a problem. But of course, in my field, you should just use the AI. That's fine because you're just trying to get the job done.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, and the other one that's going to be interesting is college entrance exams. Although people are paying, as we know, um,
can you
for
get
people to
ringers?
write their exams. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
which,
that's clear cheating. But I mean, the other thing people do is
yeah,
pay for like tutoring and stuff so your kid can pass the exam.
yeah. But now you can use Chat GPT to generate.
Yeah, ChatGPT will pass all these things, including the bar exam.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So,
so what it probably means, I think, is you should give a different kind of exam. I mean, I've got online multiple choice exams, and I'm sure people could totally use AI to cheat on all of them. So, it probably should be replaced with something more interactive, like do something hands-on project or something.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, Cisco was that way. Cisco, the final is a hands-on final. Here's the router, set it up. You have 20 minutes. Blam. It either works or it doesn't.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, technology causes change
Yeah.
or results in change.
Yeah, but certainly
And
the last thing we want to do is tell students not to use these modern tools, because the most important thing is to learn how to use the modern tools and get the job done, at least at our
yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah.
And
I would agree.
if that means
And
teaching difficult, that's our job, is to adapt.
yeah, and you're not exactly going to be able to undo the technology
And
and
clearly
or
these tools.
outlaw it.
And just in the opposite, I want everyone to jump on this. I say whoever learns to understand AI sooner is going to have a huge advantage.
I would agree with you. Yeah, yeah,
So it's more important for you to learn how to use the AI than to learn like Latin or whatever old-fashioned skill I'm trying to think is
yeah,
important around here. That's a problem when I go to talks too. When I listen to talks, most of the time, whatever the speaker thinks the point of the talk is, I couldn't care less. It's some incidental detail that matters to me. And I think that's really important to understand, just like musicians or any kind of artist, you throw your bread on the waters, you're presenting something and you do not know what they're going to get out of it.
yeah, yeah. I would agree.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got for us next?
Well, there is I thought this was actually pretty funny from a mathematical point of view. Safari you can fingerprint Safari by the sounds it produces. Under certain conditions, it creates an inaudible sound, and you can pick it up at the microphone and fingerprint the Safari by the patterns of that sound. And Apple became aware of this, and it's the timing in the sound that mattered. So they added a random jitter to the timing to conceal this. And these researchers defeated this. And they defeated it in an interesting fact. What Apple did was they added a random jitter to the time, which is a flat distribution, like from 1 to 20 microseconds flat. And it turns out that a flat distribution is much, much worse than a Gaussian distribution. A Gaussian distribution has the usual statistics where if you have a noise of 100, you would need 100 squared samples to average it out. But a flat distribution, it's more like linear. I didn't know this. So it turns out adding noise with a uniform distribution of noise is almost completely ineffective.
So
Yeah.
explain this. Let's go back. Where does the sound generate from? Obviously, it's from the speaker.
Well, browsers
Un
can produce audio files you can't hear. So I think you play it. You have a web page and you play this like high frequency noise.
oh, I see. I
And
see.
then you
So
listen
it's
to the
kind of
microphone to see how it's distorted.
so it's steganography, if you will, of a sound file.
Well,
or a variant of steganography?
it's kind of like sonar, where you send out a sound signal, and from what comes back, you deduce what you've hit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
What I was getting at is
yeah,
you're looking at some information, but there's
yeah,
also some additional intelligence in there.
yeah. And it
But
kind of
yeah,
reminds me of one that UC Berkeley did about 20 years ago, where they would just send pings to your computer from multiple locations and time them and find your physical location by triangulating them.
yeah, yeah.
So,
But yeah, but that's a little bit different. But so
yeah,
what's happening is you play an audio file or a video file,
yeah,
and there's some high frequency response that or some high frequencies in there that we can't hear,
yeah,
but you could see it on an oscilloscope or software, plotting software
yeah.
for audio
And,
files. Got it.
and you can tell like what version of Safari they're using and stuff from the pattern of the delay.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, how would that be usable?
The idea is to fingerprint you like a cookie, so they can identify the repeat user coming back to some extent.
So, but you'd have to play a sound file. So,
Yeah,
it,
you'd
to,
have a page they go to where you put it in the background or something where it's
oh,
playing,
I see. I
and it
see.
can be an inaudible file, so they don't notice.
Oh, so you could visit a website.
Yeah.
I see. I see.
Then the website can
So,
identify if you're the same person coming back to some extent, just like they had put a cookie on.
so, would this be tracking for consumers,
Yeah, that's the
for
idea.
example? Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
This isn't defined like Bin Laden.
Well, it's also to find attackers, of course. You could
Yeah.
identify
Okay.
malicious actors that come back, even if they have a different IP address.
So, Sam, could you not have, I'm just asking here, somebody on the phone, probably not, and they visit a website and a phone conversation would pick it up. I think the microphone of the phone would pick up those frequencies, would be my thought.
Yeah, and I think that's how this works. That's how you
Uh,
use the sound to hear you're listening to
yeah,
the,
but you couldn't hear it with a cell phone. The frequency response, I think.
oh, well, I think
Maybe.
not. And
Yeah.
I think it's an inaudible frequency.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd have to use somehow the computer to listen back, and you'd have to have a microphone that's sensitive enough.
I guess. Yeah. That I don't quite understand what frequency they're using up. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Okay.
yeah, I thought it was sort of interesting just from the mathematical point of view. It had never occurred to me that adding uniform noise is inferior to adding Gaussian noise.
All right. You're looking at it from one point of view. I'm
Yeah.
looking at it from
Yeah,
another.
yeah, yeah. Oh, you're just thinking more meaning. But anyway,
Yeah.
all
All
right.
right. Let's move on. This
Yeah,
is a good one.
yeah,
Talk about history repeating itself.
yeah.
So we've heard about the anti-vaxxers and people who are against vaccines and things like that. Well, once again, we have a child that went out of the country, came back to the US with measles, went to a medical care facility in Sacramento, California, and was in the highly contagious portion of measles and was potentially spreading it to everybody who was in the hospital who is unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So now the hospital is having to track down all the different people that this child may have come in contact with or visited the care facility. And the thing is, you know, this wouldn't be an issue if they're all vaccinated, or it'd be much less of an issue. Obviously, vaccines are not 100%, but they're the chances of somebody getting it would be greatly reduced in spreading it.
Yeah, what's the vaccination rate in Sacramento? I mean, it's not a red state. I would have thought it would be pretty high.
No, I think you'll find that the anti-vaxxers have been around in different parts of the state for a while. Now, the reason that I say this is history repeating itself is because about 20 years ago in San Diego, a family child went and visited Switzerland. They came back and their child came down with measles, went to the daycare center, spread it to all the anti-vax kids in the daycare center. And this is what the story is. The health department came out and quarantined the homes. And this was an upscale community. And the reason that this was kind of hit the news, or the reason I remember it, is because this was the family of a news reporter. And the news reporter said, we're quarantined. I can't leave my house. I think it was for 2, 3 weeks while the
Mm,
measles ran its course.
mm.
So I will tell you, measles, while it's not that difficult to deal with if you're a child, if you get it as an adult, it's known as shingles, and it can be incredibly painful.
I've been told that, so I went and got my shingle shots. And if you, by the way, if you got your shingle shot, you have to get a new one. They just improved it.
So we have new improved, yeah. It's interesting since we're talking about vaccines. This isn't really a vaccine, but similar case was the story of Contra Costa County and TB. And there was an outbreak this last fall of TB, which is, these diseases that before you and I were born were killing 2 or 3 kids out of every 5 or 6. They were deadly diseases.
And I
And
guess TB is still around because, as you know, if you're a teacher in California, you have to go for a TB test every 3 years.
yeah, yep. Or if you're a healthcare worker, I believe you have to do it every, now I've forgotten, 1, 2, 3 years also
So it
as
must be
well.
around.
Yeah, and this is one of those diseases that there's no vaccine for, but once you get it, it can be devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There,
So,
I thought there was, oh, yeah, it's cowpox. There's no vaccine for TB. I didn't know that.
no, no vaccine for
Hmm.
TB. What's interesting is since oh, who came up with Louis Pasteur,
Right.
right? Yeah, came up with, that was about 100 years ago, discovered that penicillin came about, right?
Well, no, I think he's figured out you could pasteurize food. That's what I'm thinking. You
Oh,
boiling, yeah. Yeah,
wait,
penicillin, I think might have been somebody else. But
yeah, you're right, right. Pasteurization. Yeah.
I know penicillin was the greatest improvement in human longevity. The only thing more important is clean water. Those are the things that gave us giant leaps forward, like several more years of lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. So, that was about 100 years ago. I haven't researched this, so we
Yeah,
could fact check this.
a little
But
more.
what's interesting is the drug companies were making, um, oh, I know. The first drug was a staph infection, which was deadly, or can be deadly. It's all over the outside of our skin, but if it gets inside of us, then it can be deadly. I believe it leads to sepsis,
Mhm.
and that's still killing people today.
Oh yeah.
So we've come up with antibiotics, and these antibiotics would give us maybe about 10, 12 years of before they evolved and became
Right,
drug resistant.
right.
And over the years, if you take a look, the drug resistant bacteria keep about half the life, kind of Moore's law, but in reverse, if you will. But they keep halving. And right now, most of the drug companies are no longer making antibiotics because they have to spend $1 billion and they get maybe a year or two. And as we have seen, we have some drug resistant bacteria right now, right? MERS, I think, and I don't know if you can think of some of the others, but this is quite an issue. The flesh-eating bacteria.
No, I've read about this. The drug-resistant bacteria are coming up, and we're running out of antibiotics to fight them.
And the drug companies, there's no profitable for them.
Well, that's why you need government to step in,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
hopefully we'll have, maybe in Europe,
yeah. You,
more
you know
likely
what's
than here.
yeah, for all the people who are anti-vaccines, it's interesting. If you go back to the 1950s when polio came about,
Yeah.
and it's incredible to see the lines of parents, moms, parents, bringing their children into a vaccine clinic where the lines will go around the block because those parents wanted to make sure their kid got vaccinated as quick as possible.
Yeah, well, polio was really scary and it affected kids. So, I mean,
Yeah,
this idea of not letting your kids get vaccinated is a new bit of madness. I think that's come and go in waves, I suppose, but
Yeah,
it's
it comes and
ridiculous.
goes in waves.
Like, I
And
remember Trump just announced a couple weeks ago that he's going to like cut funding to any school that requires any vaccine at all,
I mean,
which is
that's
insane. I mean,
the
you got measles,
recipe for
mumps, and rubella.
disaster.
I mean,
Yeah.
even if you believe the conspiracy theories about the COVID vaccine, and you could argue that the COVID vaccine shouldn't have been given to kids, but these other ones, you really have to give them to kids.
Yeah, yeah. These are deadly diseases, childhood diseases that
Yeah.
wiped out families, right? You go to cemeteries and churches and you see kids that died, lots of kids, especially in the same family. Look at the headstones, the gravestones of how these kids died. And these were young childhood diseases.
Yeah.
And if you take a look, if you ever want to vaccinate a kid, take a look on YouTube. There's a video of a mom holding a kid, a child, infant, who's dying of whooping cough.
Yeah.
It's devastating.
Yeah. I saw another video that I thought was very interesting. You have a baby and they're going to vaccinate it. And the doctor leaves the plastic cover on the needle and just pokes the kid
Yeah.
like a game. Poke, 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 poke. And the kid is delighted. Then he takes off, gives them a shot. They don't react. They don't freak out. They don't cry. It just feels like another poke. And they say, "For real? You could do that?"
That's
Because
brilliant.
it is brilliant. Because the shot doesn't really hurt that much.
No.
If you're sort of thinking, oh, it's a fun game, I'll get a little poke, you won't even notice it. I think that is brilliant.
Yeah, that's very clever. Sam, I got to tell you this. This is incredible to me. So during the era of polio, people became paralyzed. Their diaphragm muscles became paralyzed, and we'd put people into something that's called an iron lung,
Yeah.
and it's a big kind of vacuum-ish like chamber where only their head sticks out.
Yeah. When I was a kid, that was what we most feared. That was why polio was scary. You could end up in that thing.
Yeah. Any idea today how many people are still alive in iron lungs?
I don't know.
I know of at least two.
Hmm. Well, I bet there's more than that, but I mean, you wonder
Yeah.
if they wouldn't invent some portable device, some better system.
I don't know. The only reason that this made news headlines is because there's a lawyer. There's a guy in the 50s. He was in high school. I think he got into college and got polio. And he was in the dorms, but he was living in an iron lung. And his fellow students would wheel him into class. He became a lawyer
Yeah,
and
good.
he's still practicing today. One of the components for his iron lung finally wore out, and there are no replacement parts. So some maker came along and used some 3D printing machine to recreate the
Good.
component that he needed. So these people don't have to live in an iron lung 24/7, but they have to spend, depending on how paralyzed they are, they have to spend quite a lot of time in it.
Well, I'm glad that person gets to have a career and everything. I feel like Stephen Hawking kind of
Yeah,
demonstrated that you can have an outrageous physical handicap and still be productive and have a good life.
yeah. So, he was a lawyer. People would go into his office. He'd be sitting in his iron lung, look at him because you're looking up at the ceiling.
Yeah.
They would have a mirror so they could see who's coming in. And people would say to him, you know, what kind of lawyer are you? And the comment was, well, if you went to law school in that thing, I know you're going to fight for me.
I saw a TV show where Michael J. Fox appears with his Parkinson's as a lawyer, and he wins cases by exploiting the fact that people feel sorry about him for being sick. You just got to work with what you got.
Yeah, I saw that show. I thought that was very well done,
Yeah.
very well played, and it was nice to see him, back in the TV show.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see people with. I took care of a handicapped guy, and he impressed me and how he just didn't let it stop him. He had to ride this
Yeah,
scooter, and he could hardly walk, and he had other problems, but he just did everything anyway. Tough. And I said that's the
yeah,
right attitude.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They are enabled in other ways.
Yeah.
And there was a really good TED talk that I really liked, given probably about 15 years ago. And it's about this woman, her name's Amy Mullins, and she was born without any tibias in both of her legs bilaterally.
Hmm.
And so at the time when she was 1, 2 years old, the doctor said, she's going to have a difficult time walking. Why don't you just bilateral amputee, cut off both of her legs, and she'll wear prosthetics for the rest of her life.
Oh,
Her parents agreed to do that.
well, it might be the right
It's
answer. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and she grew up in I believe Pennsylvania. So it's a very good TED talk. But she said, I grew up, I played soccer, I played baseball, I was very athletic,
Yeah.
and she had a great time. And nobody looked at her as being disabled or not enabled.
Yeah.
And she finally decided that she was going to college. She decided to start running. And she kind of tells about the story of running with prosthetic legs, and she was afraid that with the heat that the prosthetic leg would fall off while she's running maybe the 50-yard dash, something like that.
Wow. She's doing pretty well.
Anyway,
Yeah.
at the end, she wound up becoming a model, runway model, fashion model, and she was a party in New York. And her friend came up to her and she says, Amy, aren't you a few inches taller? And she said, yeah, isn't this great? I got these new prosthetic legs. I can be shorter, I can be taller. And her friend looks at her and says, but that's not fair.
That's right. It's
So
not. Yeah.
I'll tell you, she's given 3 TED Talks. And if you want to be inspired by somebody who's disabled, who doesn't think they're disabled,
Yeah.
you now realize that maybe there's some advantages.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to see it. I'm glad people
Yep.
don't let things get you down. And
Yeah.
especially, as I get older and sicker, this inspires me how to cope. You got physical problems, you deal with it. You still
Yeah.
get things done anyway.
Yeah, exactly. What do you got for us next?
I
That
got a
was
few
kind of
other ones. One, the Wall Street Journal has a big article about an expose, a shocking document from China that shows that they're deleting American technology and just relying on internal technology. I don't know why anybody is surprised. Several years ago, when we blocked Huawei, China kicked an American company out, and it's obvious we're both going this way. So I don't know what the big deal is, but anyway, they're making a big deal out of the fact that they are in fact trying to remove American technology from their stuff, just like they're trying to remove Chinese technology from our stuff. And they're trying to make everything internally so they don't have to rely on the supply chain from a hostile nation, just like we are. So
interesting.
I thought that was happening. I don't know why it's a surprise. Um, there's a couple more here. Apparent GitHub went to see how many people are leaking secrets, and it turns out 12 million secrets and keys were leaked on GitHub in 2023. So it is pretty ridiculous. A ton of people
So,
are publishing source code with secrets in it.
and when you mean secrets, it's like I mean, not product keys, but
API keys or passwords.
yeah,
And
yeah,
there's even a
passwords.
service on GitHub to detect that, but it's not on by default. So I guess they're not turning it on. and and uh, and the last one I thought was probably going to excite people. Airbnb has banned the use of indoor security cameras, which apparently were allowed until now. Now I've seen these articles and videos of people like how to search your Airbnb to see if there's a camera spying on you. And the end result is there's no good way. Your chance of finding it is like 10% no matter what you do. But
Right.
apparently it was okay for Airbnb to do that. They allowed it as long as you disclosed there's a camera. But now they say, no, there's too many people get upset. This is freaking people out. No more cameras indoors, which is probably the
Hmm.
right thing to do.
Yeah, but I think I saw that news article,
Yeah.
but I think Airbnb allows for decibel meters.
Oh, well, I guess
S-
that would be relatively harmless.
Well, if you want to have a big party,
Well, sure, but maybe
uh,
they want to know. I mean, that's what they're afraid of, is you're going to have a big party and trash the place
yeah,
like a rock star.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that might be one relatively harmless way to detect that without like actually photographing you or hearing your conversation.
yeah. And I guess, but you can have the cameras outside,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could see how many people are coming in. And I guess there's no restriction on recording audio either.
I don't
I
know.
didn't see that. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of laws against recording audio. This is why in Europe, in Britain, they're the only society more surveilled than we are. Not only do they have cameras everywhere, they have microphones outside. And you can't do that in America because of wiretap laws. Recording audio without permission is forbidden, whereas recording video in public places is allowed.
So recording audio in a public place is not allowed?
Apparently not. This is what I've read. This is why we don't have microphones where we have all the surveillance cameras.
But, huh, interesting.
Yeah,
And so I'm just thinking, then how do news reporters get away with that?
I think if there's a human there carrying around a camera,
An
that
obvious,
that I
yeah,
think that counts. But if you just have like a surveillance device, it's not
I
allowed to
see.
record audio. That's what I read. I don't understand the details. But in
Yeah,
Britain, the surveillance devices do record audio just everywhere. They have one outside every pub and on the corners. And so they're recording both the video and the audio of everybody everywhere.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
anyway, that's all I got.
All right, I have one last one.
All
Do you
right.
have a Roku account?
I don't even know what Roku is. Some kind of television?
Yeah, Roku is like a Fire Stick for your TV. It allows you to bring in TV stations or streaming content into a TV set. It's got a plugs into the back of your TV,
That seems
and
to be built into smart TVs these days. My friends, they're trying their TV and
yeah,
every streaming service already in there.
yeah, yeah. You can either get it as a box or a subscription service.
Yeah.
So your account, or at least 15,000 accounts, have been hacked and they've been sold for 50 cents each. That's the value of your account.
That's pretty
So I
hard.
didn't do the math on that. What is that? About $7,500,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
a lot of money, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, and what are they going to do? Are they going to just watch TV on your behalf or can they somehow suck money out of your account?
Well, yeah, good question. I don't know if how would you suck money out of people's accounts? I'm not sure about that, but
Not unless you
you
get
know,
the credit card number or something.
yeah. So I'm wondering if they also got their passwords and they could do start firing away at different other services to
Yeah.
see if common passwords are there.
Well, that's true. That's an option. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, wait, I forgot. The the hackers used it to buy hardware.
You can buy hardware with a Roku
No,
account?
no, no. They sold
Oh, the
it,
money. Right.
and with the profits, they went out to buy more powerful computers.
Oh, well. So if so, it went to a good cause.
Yeah, it's part
Well,
of the education plan.
yes, yes. This is what I've heard by the government resists having research exceptions for hacking laws because they say everybody would use it to just get away with everything then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for me.
That's it for me too. So we'll have another one on Friday.
Sounds good.
Okay. As usual, I'm having trouble finding there it is. Okay.